Hi class, this is Christine Karapedian and I'll be presenting the first chapter of the Weddell textbook for this week's readings. First, I'd like to present you with a brief summary of some of the main points that the authors addressed. They stated that there was a significance of challenges and the advantages in utilizing qualitative and mixed methods in research studies. They also stated that there was great value and demand for these approaches in aging research sectors as well as public health. Now, it is noteworthy to add that this textbook was initially intended to educate and train experts and scholars in related fields. The authors have helped us provide applicable information to execute these strategies in a wide variety of populations, such as geriatric research or other groups that encompass differences in race, ethnicity, or culture. The authors finally emphasize the integrated and interdependent relationship between qualitative and quantitative measures. Off to the right, you can see an illustration that I've included to clarify this topic and to differentiate both of the concepts. Moving on to some of the main points of this chapter, the authors introduced us to the origin of qualitative methods, which were derived from sociological and anthropological research. Now, this dates back to almost a century ago, during the 1920s, which coined the term Chicago School, which is sourced from the University of Chicago, which was one of the first schools to adopt and specialize in urbanized sociology. Now, this was in addition to other ethnographic studies like Malinowski's research. The authors really emphasize the increase of utilization in these approaches and the wide variety of research topics that this delves into, such as health, biomedical science, healthcare programs, end-of-life care matters, financial decisions regarding Medicare and long-term care, in addition to clinical conditions such as Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. Secondly, the authors state that qualitative designs are a good foundation to really establish an action plan for your program and also to implement successful interventions. They also mention that the chief informants of information are derived from chief stakeholders and target populations. Now, these stakeholders are people that have direct experience in managing such organizations, and the target populations refers to individuals that have personal understandings of these social issues that the program at hand aims to resolve. Now, there are several forms of qualitative strategies, and these tactics include accounts within interviews, journal entries, empirical evidence, focus groups, and examination of press materials, which all help in evaluating the program or the public health policy as a whole, while also contributing and complementing to the quantitative data. Lastly, the authors mention a methodological pluralism concept, which is basically an incorporation of a research method that combines both portions of quantitative and qualitative strategies to help produce a multifaceted technique for evaluations in a diversity of topics, such as demographic studies or health services research, like the trends in service utilization and decisions regarding healthcare treatment. Now, this form of evaluation also leads into our next topic, which is triangulation, which also helps enhance quality and dependability of research. And this concept really dives into a collection of data that is acquired from multiple sources Now, this can originate from peer debriefs, transparent accounts of used methods, descriptive documentation, as well as external audits. Now, in regards to analysis, I have compared this textbook's chapter to our other course textbook by Rossi and several other authors. So some of the similarities are their emphasis and statement of the qualitative methods and how they assist the assessment of program needs. They also both emphasize the integration of both approaches to sufficiently address the nature of the issue at hand. Lastly, both books emphasize the value of including focus groups. Now, these focus groups are consisted of key stakeholders and individuals that are directly impacted by the problem. Now, these types of people that are involved in these parties are an additional source of helpful information. So some examples of key stakeholders can be leaders within a community, service agency directors, frontline employees of organizations, that really interact with their clientele, as well as advocacy representatives. And the people that are directly impacted are the ones that can really add to the conversation and the detailed discussion of this topic that is often done with a facilitator on hand who really monitors the discussion. Now, in contrast, the Rossi textbook includes the approach of snowball sampling. Now, this concept may be new to us, but it describes a chain of referred individuals that are really knowledgeable about this pressing issue. And this chain continues as they are asked and surveyed to refer other individuals. And this process goes on and on until they run out of names or they start to repeat names. Now, this method is used as a supplementary source of additional insight for researchers and program developers. And lastly, I'd like to discuss my overall impression of this chapter. There was a mixture of strengths and weaknesses. So to start off with the good news, the writers helped include both advantages and the drawbacks of qualitative methods. Now, this really helped expose the critiques of some of these concepts and also revealed some of the political factors. In regards to critiques, it included some of the perceived absence of generalizability, in addition to some of its undervalued quote-unquote subjective sources in comparison to the scientific counterparts from quantitative studies. Now, some of the political aspects regarded acceptance processes from leading decision makers, and this really put the big picture into view. In addition, I felt like there was a transparent exchange of information between the authors and the reader or their intended audience. I felt like that really eliminated any type of bias. And lastly, I enjoyed reading it because it was brief and the authors really managed to communicate the topic as well as the findings and the referenced examples in a really concise manner. Now, on to some of the negative aspects of the chapter. I felt like it was quite difficult to read and understand the first time through. I had to go back and kind of analyze it and reread through some of the paragraphs to make sure, or look up some of the references so that I understood the full context. But I think that was mainly due to my own personal lack of exposure to this specific subject matter. And lastly, I feel like another weakness was that the main intention of this book and this chapter was to train those that are highly educated and really the experts and the professionals, which often excludes the other individuals that might be interested or from different backgrounds and areas of expertise or education. So I feel like those are some topics to be addressed in further discussion. And lastly, I would like to introduce you to the reference, which is our other textbook for the class. And if you have any other comments, questions, or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me via email, and it is posted right there. It is all lowercase and together. And thank you for listening, and fight on.